Okay, so let's talk a little bit about translating. I want to introduce you to a book that I think might be a good resource for you if you want to obtain that from, like, say, Amazon. It's called It's Still Greek to Me, even though it says it's for intermediate Greek. It's very easy to understand, and so it's a guide that talks about the parts that go into a language. So it discusses what a noun is, what an adjective is, what a verb is. So this is very helpful if you're not very good at English, pretty much. So it talks about all these parts. It talks about what it means to have an encoded language. And so it compares English to Greek, talks about the endings of Greek, what finite verbs are, what infinitives are, the idea of voice. You can see bolded words here, right? Like active and passive and voice. The idea of middle voice, mood. We're going to deal with that next semester. Indicative, subjunctive, optative, imperative. I think it will really help you. And then how you organize the Greek parts of speech, because that's what the parts are of a sentence that you aim to translate. This guy says, well, I basically look at Greek as divided into two basic systems. A noun system and a verb system. Each system has its own subcategories. All right. He says, when the noun bears a particular relationship to the rest of the sentence, it's expressed by a case. And of course we have that: nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. When you want to make the relationship of the noun to the rest of the sentence more vivid, you use a preposition, because we have some of it built in already into, like, the genitive and the dative. But if you really want to bear it out, then you use a preposition. If you want to qualify the noun by some attribute, make it attributive, you use an adjective. When you want to avoid monotony and repetition, or emphasize something, I would say, you use a pronoun. If you desire to represent the thing designated by the noun as particular, like you want to point at it, you use the article, the, definite article. So the grammar of the noun includes cases, prepositions, adjectives, pronouns, and the article. The verb then is the other part of speech that makes a certain assertion, because it depends on action. When an assertion is subjoined as an auxiliary to another, so as a help part to another, the infinitive or participle is used. If the assertion is to be varied by certain qualifications, so you want to modify it, the adverb is used. In joining one assertion to another, a conjunction may be used, like I. Finally, the speaker's attitude in the assertion is frequently expressed by a participle. And let's look over and see what else we have. This chapter is called Group Therapy, the Sentence and its Part. Remember that we talk about the subject nominative. All sentences are composed of two basic parts, the subject and the predicate. The subject is the part of the sentence about which an assertion is made by the use of a finite verb. Fire burns. The predicate is the part of the sentence that makes an assertion about the subject by using a finite verb. Fire burns. So we talk about different types of finite verbs here. A transitive verb transfers an action from the subject of the verb to another person, place, or thing. Like Jane liked Farmer Jones. An intransitive verb expresses an action that is limited to the subject of the sentence. Jane smiled. Now, a linking verb allows words in the predicate to describe or rename the subject of the sentence. Jane was happy. And was, of course, is a form of to be. The most common linking verbs in the New Testament are eimi, ginomai, and uparko. So that's why we're going to introduce eimi very early on. Because of their power to join nouns to other nouns or adjectives, these verbs are called copulative verbs. From the Latin verb copulo, I think. Okay, So copulative verbs do not transfer action onto an object, and thus they do not need a direct object. It only may have a noun or an adjective in the predicate in order to complete its meaning, so a form of to be. Okay, so we have different kinds of sentences, and so when we start a sentence we will look for the subject nominative. So this is the first part. Next we will look at some examples, such as here, for example, no pun intended. Let's look here. You see a sentence here. Erketai gar Johannein pros humas ein godo dikaiusune. Now, the one crucial mistake that you do not want to make is you do not want to approach this sentence in an English way. You have to think as the Greeks did and do. So the Greeks first look for the subject nominative, which in this case is Johannes. That's the subject nominative. So that's the subject of the sentence. Now we have a subject. Now I need a verb. Oh, there's a verb. Erketai. Erketai, by the way, is a deponent from erkemai. So we're going to translate that actively. We also have gar. Gar is a postpositive. So it will never be found at the beginning of a sentence, would be translated as such. So for John, mai saitai, he is coming. For John comes or is coming, pros, toward humas, us. But I'm sorry, towards you. Now humas is an accusative because we need a direct object at this point. For John is coming to you, to y'all. And then the Greek has what is kind of unique, an indirect object, in the way or in the road of righteousness. In the way of righteousness. For John is coming to you in the way of righteousness. Let's do this again. Let's look at a sentence here. What do you do first? You do not think like the English do. You do not start translating from left to right. You always go through your checklist. When people say, I don't understand translating, that simply means they don't follow procedure. So go through your checklist like a pilot flies a plane. First thing in your checklist is find a subject. Subject nominative, ha huios. There you go. The sun. The sun, and then complete that sentence there, that little fragment there, prepositional phrase. The sun, not just any sun, the son to anthropou. So it's in the genitive. The son of man. Now what happened to the son of man? Now we need a verb. The son of man, ekhe. He has. What does he have? We need a direct object. And a direct object is always in the accusative. So that's the next thing on our to-do list. Exousion. Look at that ending. Alphanu. The son of man has authority. Now, what kind of authority and where is it located? What does it limit? The Son of Man has authority, epites gaze, upon the earth. And that's your translation. Now, what if you don't have a subject nominative as a noun? Then you find it somewhere else. Look here. If you don't have a subject nominative as far as a noun is concerned, you're going to find your next best noun, which would be a pronoun, and pronouns are embedded in verbs in Greek. So estheusin comes from estheo, which is a verb, so it has pronouns embedded, which is also a verb of a form of a noun. So in this case, that's where we're going to get our subject. So they, because it's third person plural, they are eating. Twos are twos. What are they eating? The bread.